let me take a step back. Most of the minutes, are pretty standard. This is what happened, this is what happened. Occasionally there is some commentary, and this is the secretary of the lodge who's commenting about the year that has just been completed when Naismith was Naismith was the master of the lodge. And I won't read the whole thing, but he says, "The crowning and outstanding moment of 1928, in the opinion of your secretary, is the undoubted evidence of renewed zeal and of splendid growth in fraternal regard and conduct." So again, he's building character everywhere he goes. And this is, these are a couple of logbooks where he signed in. And you can see he puts his degree right there. So 32nd degree, James Naismith. He's over in here too somewhere. Oh, there he wrote Jim Naismith, 32nd degree. After Naismith's funeral and burial, Fong Allen, quote, moved the floral arrangements out of the way and lined up his KU basketball players, and then photographer and longtime Naismith friend Duke DeAmbra took a photograph of Allen and the current basketball team at Naismith's grave. This caused a great deal of enmity between the two families for a while. The way Fong figured there should be a final photograph, and I have not yet located that photograph, so if anyone's ever seen that photograph, please let me know. The Naismith family, hearing of what happened, telephoned their protests at the disarrangement of the funeral flowers. Now, across the cemetery Memorial Park from Naismith's grave is an impressive memorial, which I'm sure many people have seen, even from the road. Have you ever seen this? Right there on 15th Street. As the previous pictures demonstrated, Naismith is not buried here, but across the park. Yet several people have chosen to be buried next to the memorial itself. And obviously where one chooses to be buried says something about one's beliefs, religious or otherwise. And this is Kukuk. When I first saw this, I thought it was like a typo, or they had run out of a typo on the tombstone. But this is, as I've now learned, a common surname in this region. And this individual, I believe, ran the company that provided the programs for basketball game, a printing company that provided the programs for basketball games for many years. Loving father, grandpa, and loyal KU fan. And he's not the only one who's buried there. Several other people have chosen to be buried there as well. It's very interesting. You can see all around that memorial. Again, he's not actually buried there. He's buried across the cemetery. I also met a man who has purchased grave plots for himself and his wife because they're the closest available to Naismith's actual grave across the cemetery. So people are jockeying to be buried near him over there and then also over here. Right back over here. During the height of the excitement of the 11-12 season, I drove over to Memorial Park to see if anyone had decorated either Naismith's memorial or his actual grave. The answer is yes, they did. Left some offerings and such, and a note. And then some people had decorated the actual grave too. Across the street in Oak Hill Cemetery is where Forrest Allen is buried, and he died in 1974. And I went over there to take a look at his grave, and there was a ticket from the Big 12 tournament that was tucked in there with that little figurine right there at the gravestone, and that was a recent ticket. It had just been from the tournament the month before. For many years, the original copy of the Rules of Basketball was in a desk in Naismith's office. After his death, the family loaned the document to the Basketball Hall of Fame soon after it opened, and in the 90s, claiming that they were not being displayed, the family members took the rules back. Jan Naismith, one of Naismith's grandsons, traveled around the country with them. He gave lectures about sportsmanship. He carried them in a gold-colored briefcase everywhere. Once he thought he had left the briefcase in an Overland Park Hooters. However, it was under the seat in his RV. he brought the briefcase in for lunch, thought he left it in there, and it was underneath the seat of his RV, and it slid underneath, so that he called back to the Hooters frantically, asking if they'd seen a golden briefcase. There he is with his golden briefcase. I met Jan Naismith in Detroit at the 2009 Final Four. There's the rules. There's me, and in the interest of full disclosure, my undergraduate degree is from UNC. And there's my brothers too. That used to be when I first came here, it was a good thing that I had studied there, that it was a bad thing. Now it's sort of in between. And with these coaches getting together for the anniversary of Allen Fieldhouse with Larry Brown and Roy Williams coming back, I think I feel comfortable to publicly admit that again. No, I'm just kidding. All right, I'm almost done. Then in 2010, Jan Naismith decided to sell the rules. On December 10, 2010, Sotheby's auctioned the rules and David Booth purchased them. The price, including the buyer's premium, was $4.3 million. Actually, slightly over that. 2008, Booth endowed the University of Chicago Business School with a gift of $300 million. Also being auctioned the same day as the rules were Robert F. Kennedy's personal copy of the authorized edition of the Emancipation Proclamation, signed by Abraham Lincoln. 48 copies printed as a fundraiser to benefit the Sanitary Commission in 1864. So a copy of the Emancipation Proclamation signed by Abraham Lincoln, that was the personal property of Robert F. Kennedy. Do you think it sold for more or less than the rules?
Less.
Correct, less. Also, Custer's last flag, the Culbertson Guidon, that's like a triangular type flag with a notch at the end of it from the Battle of the Little Bighorn, or what Native American people call the Battle of Greasy Grass, the most significant and symbolic artifact recovered from the Little Bighorn battlefield. So did that sell for more or less than the rules? Less. Yeah. Give you a little bit of context. The rules sold for more than either of these two items. They were placed on temporary display at the Nelson Atkins in 2011. I was scolded for taking this photo. Jan Naismith had a foundation that presented a Naismith Good Sportsmanship Award, of course, before he died, and it was presented to a number of different people. There's an award in the case in the Booth Athletics Hall of Fame. There's an example of that award. Excuse me, and note the YMCA symbol there in the design. Jan Naismith died in 2012, and in 2011, he presented what would be the final 3 awards to Dean Smith, Kay Yao, and Mike Krzyzewski. You probably know who Dean Smith and Mike Krzyzewski. You know who Kay Yao was?
Yeah, women's basketball coach.
That's right, at North Carolina State University. Yeah, very well known. Then in 2011, the announcement was made that plans for an addition to Allen Fieldhouse were underway. And then these are images from the architectural firm Gould Evans, which has a local, I don't know if it began, I don't know where it began, but it has a local office here in Lawrence. Did it begin here?
Yep.
Yeah, because now I was looking on the website, they have worldwide offices now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so the DeBruce Center was designed by that firm, and the target date for completion is the beginning of the 2015-2016 basketball season. And what they're going to do is they're going to put the rules in the walkway, which is this thing right here, which supposedly is going to somehow project the rules continuously on the outside of the facade. Because you can see here that see how they're, you can see that the words are right here. You can see the words there and the words there. And as I understand it, the way that they're going to do this is they're going to have it in between the two buildings essentially so they can lock it down. Because they have to have very tight security on this item. In conclusion, basketball is unlike other major international spectator sports such as football, baseball, or soccer. While they were products of evolution, basketball was created by one known individual. Basketball was the invention of a man who was deeply committed to his religious beliefs, and the game itself is a product of religious ideology. It has a mythology of creation, a venerated scripture that expresses a creed, a patriarch, and students and disciples who have carried the ideas forward. Hagiographic elements of the commemoration of Naismith's legacy, both past and present, suggest that he is basketball's most cherished prophet. Certainly his life, and especially the actual creation event, are mythologized. While few would argue today that basketball constitutes a religion, the fault lines for many people remain blurry. The simile, basketball is like a religion, abounds. The end for now. Thank you.
Want to take a couple of questions?
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Shall I say it?
Sure, please.
Wouldn't James Naismith be appalled today with the focus of basketball being money?
You know, it's interesting. I get asked that question all the time.
Of course.
And I don't know if it's interesting. If you study the history of the NCAA and the basketball, this sort of thing that's going on today was going on then. And there were all kinds of issues with money and eligibility and things like that. I don't know for sure. I would think that on the one hand, yes, I could see that he might be disappointed in what a commercial enterprise, but on the other hand, and he even said this, I mean, you go to any town, anywhere, there's a basketball hoop. And so I'd like to think that he would have a balanced view of it and recognize the overall positive impact of it worldwide and historically, but yes, he probably wouldn't be a fan of some of the current practices, yeah.
Mike, I have that original essay of Naismith entitled, What's the Matter with Basketball? And in that essay, you can see his displeasure with some of the directions that basketball was taking, even in the 20s, that it was less about character building and more about winning. And there are a couple of references in that essay about money.
My question is, did religion make basketball, or did we make basketball a religion?
Both.
No, okay. I have a serious answer too, but do you want an answer to that, or was that just a?
No, what's your serious?
Well, I mean, there's no question that his religious ideology was foundational in the formation of the game, and that's undeniable. Whether or not people take that upon themselves, that's a whole nother issue. But he definitely used basketball. He looked at basketball as a tool to inculcate, as I say, these values, right? Originally in Christian young men, but also women. In terms of the other question, if people made it into a religion, I said that half jokingly, the fault lines remain blurry. In religious studies, we don't ever define the term religion because, in the words of one of my professors, if we ever define what religion means, then we just have to pack up and go home. But, there's debate about what religion is, what that means to different people, what the definition is. But, I think that in contemporary society, you can see people who use basketball or think of basketball in the way Naismith did. You also see people for whom, basketball is an extremely important item in their life. And so it would depend on their personal viewpoint. But I do think that the lines can get very, very blurry. I don't know that I'd be comfortable saying, yes, like I said, few people might actually flat out say basketball is a religion, but there's a continuum there. And there are a whole lot of people in kind of a middle position, I think. So.
Yes, sir.
My grandfather one summer went on a basketball trip across Canada with Naismith.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And what was his name?
James Noonan.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
He I guess he took a bunch of young people in the early 1920s
Uh-huh.
across Canada to play.
Yeah, were they from Kansas?
No, he lived in Massachusetts.
He did?
Yeah.
In Springfield or elsewhere?
Near Springfield.
Oh, interesting.
In a small town near Springfield.
Like Longmeadow or something like that?
Westchester.
Westchester? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Oh, I'll have to look. I'll have to look into that. I'm not aware of that trip, so I'll have to.
But
sure.
if you find anything
Oh, of course, yeah, for
about
sure.
that.
And if you find any pictures of him on that trip, please let me know.
I'll check with family to see if there's any picture.
Terrific, thank you, thank you.
Have you read any of Naismith's, what he wrote, if he wrote anything about his service as chaplain in Mexico?
He did. He most of it is contained in these letters that he's writing to his family, and he talks really that's where you see, and that's where the bulk of the letters are. So I would say that's the place where you see the most of his conversation. And to sort of give you a sense of what he was thinking about, he was very aware of what was going to happen. Particularly more so once he got to Europe, what was going to happen to the soldiers when they got home, and if they were going to be provided for in terms of education and that sort of a thing. What apparently happened was he gave a lecture or two, and the commanding officers realized that he could be a big draw, and so what they would do is they would have him travel around and give lectures a lot of the time. And on the back of this, you can see that this is sponsored by the YMCA. This is a fuzzy image because it was something off of an auction website, and I don't know where the original of this is, but it says, "Tonight, the inventor of basketball, Dr. James Naismith of the University of Kansas, will speak on the game of life." And you can see that the image says the American YMCA, so you know that it's from about that time period.
What's interesting about a lot of the letters that he wrote back, particularly to his wife, is that I've read many, many of them, and I would characterize them as love letters. He was deeply devoted to her, and he missed her a lot when he was away, and they're filled with all kinds of affection references to her and to his children when he was away in the war.
Yeah, and he left her for,
2 years.
yeah, it was a chunk of time, and so she was raising the children, and their finances were difficult at different times. It's interesting though when Jim Naismith and his wife Beverly come through town about once or twice a year, and so we always visit with them now. We become good friends with them and visit with our kids and everything. And so they came through this past summer, and then Jim and I were talking about this, and I mentioned something to him, and I actually sent that was in the letters, which is that there's a letter where James Naismith is saying to Maud, he's worried that his youngest son, right, James Naismith, this was the little boy, wouldn't know who he was because he was so little when Naismith went off. And in fact, he talks about his son kind of skipping across these empty lots to Cordley Elementary, because that's where he went. Of course, my children go to Cordley, so it's a neat connection there. But this young boy that he was speaking of was Jim Naismith's father. So the Jim Naismith that I become friends with, this is his father that's being described. That James Naismith is imagining is heading to school, and he says something funny like, I imagine him skipping through the lots to school and deciding to take a right turn and go up the hill to Kansas like his father. So, yes.
Yes, I visited the Basketball Hall of Fame about 2 years ago, and
I don't know how many KU graduates are in it, there are quite a few.
Yes.
But there was a display about one of them, Paul Pierce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a number of, Will Chamberlain, of course,
Yeah, sure.
John McClendon, all of those individuals, William Johnson, Dutch Longberg,
Paul Endicott.
yeah, Paul Endicott, yep, there's a number of KU individuals there. Yep. Any other questions?
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, please feel free to come up and, take a peek at some of these materials up here while I pack up all my things.
Do you have a business card?
Yes, I do.
So if I check
Yes.
we're family, you know anything? I mean, some of my uncles might
Oh, yeah, I'm all-
you know.
Yeah, I'm very interested to know I'm not from, as I said, I know that he went on some trips, but I'm not familiar with that one, so I'd be, interested to know any information. Thank you.
I have another question. My husband went to school with Les Naismith. Do you know how he was related to there? Is he great-grandson? I think Joe's lost contact with him.
Les?
Les.
No, I'm not sure, I'm sorry. I'm not sure who Les Naismith is.
I have been
But that doesn't, I don't know that I have a complete. Yeah, but that name doesn't ring a bell.
Oh, no.
It wouldn't be a child, it could be a,
About when we'll get old.
and was it Nesmith? 'Cause
Well,
there
like
was
you
a
said, I can
Nesmith
just
family.
leave it on your porch.
Yeah.
Okay.
You said you'll be
The other
there
thing I was interested in-
probably around 4, so I'll wait till after 4. Man.
Oh, yeah.
What time's your haircut?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
I'm
I-
going over there now.
Okay, so that one is good.
Oh, good. So that's what got you
I
started.
do it over in the
Hardly,
union.
but my parents grew up in Springfield. And,
Massachusetts.
yeah, and so as I said, my grandfather took me to the Hall